In this exercise, I'm going to show you how to change the density option when you're working along inside the Puppet Warp mode. Now, it's an easy option to modify, and it's pretty obvious that you'll want to modify it as well because you'll keep getting this one error message over and over again as you work inside the Puppet Warp mode. Problem is, the suggested solution doesn't really do you all that much good because you'll still get the error message after that point. And changing the density of the mesh can have undesirable repercussions. So when you can avoid it, you should, is basically what it comes down to. I'll show you what I mean. I've saved my changes as freakishlyhappy.psd, found inside the 23 distort folder. And you may recall at the end of the previous exercise, I was working along inside Puppet Warp, as I am right now, and I clicked on the inside of this left-hand cheek. And I got this error message that says, hey, you can't add a pin at that location. It's too close to the existing one. You need to increase the number of available points, that is mesh intersections, by choosing density more points, which is this guy right there. There's the density option in the options bar. You need to change it from normal to more points, is what it's telling you. Well, you do not want to say don't show again, because in truth, even if you take this recommendation and choose more points, you're still going to get this error message in the future, and you want to see it, because otherwise you would click and Photoshop would just ignore you, which I don't think is what you want at all. Anyway, so I'm going to leave Don't Show Again off. Click OK, and I'm going to ignore Photoshop's suggestion for a moment. We'll come back to it shortly, but the better thing to do is to click at a different location. For example, I'll click on the outside of the left cheek, and then sure enough, I've got the control I want. Now, if I start dragging this point outward like so, might not produce the effect I'm looking for. So I might delete that point by Alt-clicking or Option-clicking, and then go ahead and set the point a little higher, for example, in alignment with the eye, so that I have a little bit of symmetry going on here, and then I'll drag it over just a little bit, like so, and that's still pretty darn ugly, but hey, if I drag this pin to a different location, I've got a better looking effect. Now then, if at any point in time you want to hide those pins so that you can see your distortion a little better, you don't press Control-H, or Command-H, because that brings back the mesh. So press Control-H or Command-H again to get rid of the mesh. You press and hold the H key. Now, the interesting thing here is I have the H key down. As soon as you release H, then the pins come back up. But while you have the H key down, you can actually drag the pins to different locations, even though they're invisible. Just look for that little arrowhead cursor right there, and then drag a pin. As long as you're dragging, you'll see all the pins like so. But as soon as you release, assuming you still have the H key down, as I do, then the pins go away. Then when you want to see the pins again, you release the H key. So it's kind of a mysterious keyboard shortcut, but it is there and available to you. Let's go ahead and see the effect of that density option on the hand. So I'm going to set points at each one of the digits like so. The tips of the digits, that is to say. And then I'm going to drag those points to different locations so that we have these stretchy fingertips. And you might every once in a while see the screen redraw in a strange fashion. Just wait for it to do so. Now, I'm dragging all these points with respect to each other and with respect to the base of the palm. And maybe that's not exactly where I want this point. I would go ahead and Alt-click or Option-click to delete the point and then set a new pin down here at the base of the palm like so, and then drag it down a little bit. Now, I might also decide I need a pin at the base of the thumb so that I can stretch the thumb that much more and drag the palm inward, create a point right there at the base of the index finger, another point at the base of the ring finger, like so. And then finally, I decide I need a point right there at the base of the third finger. And as soon as I go for it, I'm told, hey, you don't have enough density going on inside of your mesh. And you say, okay, well, I guess I need to add some more density. That's what Photoshop's telling me. So you click OK. And I just want you to see what's going on here on the right side of the window. I'll go ahead and press Shift-Tab in order to hide those right side panels so I can see his face and the hand at the same time. And I'm going to turn on Show Mesh for a moment so that we can see that the mesh is made up of a bunch of triangles that meet each other at points. And that's what's meant by this density option here. You can go with fewer points, which, by the way, is going to wipe out a bunch of pins that you've set down. So if I choose fewer points, notice that we will get bigger triangles and therefore fewer points at the intersections of those triangles, but I also wiped out a few of my pins, and my fingers are really suffering for it. The ring finger and the pinky are in horrible shape as a result. And the solution, of course, is to immediately go, oh my gosh, I've made a horrible mistake, and then you press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that mistake and reset the density of the mesh, because normal is really your best density setting under most circumstances. Sometimes you'll want to go higher. Rarely will you want to go lower. And you'd only want to go lower if you want to set fewer pins in the first place and get more work done with them. Anyway, I'm going to switch this density setting from normal to more points, like so. And I'm just going to hope I don't lose any pins, because you can lose pins when you increase the density as well. Notice, by the way, that I've gone ahead and added a bunch of triangles, so there's more points at the intersection of those various triangles. I've also changed the nature of the entire distortion once again. So just to give you a sense of what's happened here, I'll press Control-H or Command-H on the Mac in order to hide the mesh. And this is the before normal version of the mesh. Look at his face for a moment here. Notice how jolly he is. And this is the higher density version of the mesh. Notice he has this sort of simpering expression going. I don't like it at all. And we also have these pins that are way beyond the ends of the digits, that is to say. So this isn't really the effect that I'm looking for. I would probably come up with new pin locations. I would have to set a pin at the end of the fingers as opposed to off the ends. So I'd have to delete the existing pin, establish a new one. But really what I'm going for is the opportunity to create yet another pin. I want to create a pin at the base of the third finger, between the index finger and the fourth finger there. And so now I should be able to do so, right? So I'll click, and no, denied. It's still not an option, still not available to me. And the reason is, if I click OK in order to accept that error message there, if I press Control-H or Command-H on the Mac and zoom in, notice that adding a point did not create new points between these two pins. And so what I really need is I need 2 points between the locations of the pins. A point there and hopefully a point right at this location. Something along those lines. That would give me enough room to add a pin. But if I don't have points, then I don't have pin opportunities. And I just don't in this case. And you can't go any higher than a density setting of more points. So what I would recommend in the case of this image right here is that if I have the option to do so, I'd press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac in order to restore my previous pin locations and density setting. That is not available to me, so I press Control-Z or Command-Z, and I didn't do anything because, as well, redo and undo don't do anything in this case. How curious is that? So what I have to do instead, I'll turn off Show Mesh here, and I'll just go ahead and manually change density from more points to normal, cross my fingers, hope for the best, and sure enough, he's happy again. He's not simpering, and the fingers are looking a little better. So just want to give you a sense of what's available to you there. You might find density useful. I, as I say, routinely do not. In the next exercise, I will show you what I do consider to be a very useful and practical feature, and that's this guy right there, pin depth. Stay tuned.